Hello everyone, Issa here, Personal Fitness Training 1220 at Nate. Today we're talking about myofascial lines and the roundhouse and how they kind of come together to make all the magic happen. But before we can talk about the roundhouse kick, and we need to first understand what the lines are and kind of how they operate. So first of all, let's talk about the lines, which is the superficial back line, the superficial front line, the lateral line, and the spiral line. So to break the ice, we're going to start off with the superficial front line. The main objective for the superficial front line is to connect the anterior portion of our body. So that's the front portion of our body. It starts from the toes, makes its way up to the pelvis, and then from the pelvis, it has another connection and goes all the way up to the skull or our head. The muscles involved are the sternocleidomastoid, the quadriceps, the rectus femoris, the rectus abdominis, and the tibialis anterior. So the superficial front line has two different types of functions. It has a postural type of function and it has a movement function. So the postural function utilizes tensegrity, which is like a tension. And the exact opposite of it that's causing the rest of the tension would be the superficial back line. It's located on the other side, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's mainly provides a support for our overall structure. It maintains the postural tension of the knees and extension of the toes. Now, its movement aspect has three jobs. It provides knee extension. It causes the trunk and hip flexion, as well as dorsiflexion of the foot. Next up, the superficial backline connects and protects the posterior surface or the back surface of our body. The muscles involved include the erector spinae, the hamstring, and then the gastrocnemius. It begins at the bottom of the foot and it ends all the way at our forehead. So it's comprised of two sections. One that goes from our toes to our knees, and then another segment that starts from our knees and ends all the way at our forehead or the brow. The superficial backline's postural functions are to support the body in full upright extension, it's mostly being comprised of slow twitch movement endurance fibers. The movement function being to extend and hyperextend the upper body. This does not apply to the toes or to the knee connection. Our spiral line loops around the body in a double helix and joins each side of the skull across the upper back. Muscles involved in the spiral line include major and minor rhomboids, serratus anterior, external and internal obliques, tensor fascia latae, tibialis anterior, peroneus and fibularis longus, as well as the bicep femoris. Spiral lines, postural function, maintain balance across all planes, and aid in knee tracking. Movement functions create and mediate spirals and rotation in the body. In eccentric and isometric contractions, aids in stabilizing the trunk and leg to keep it from folding into rotational collapse. The lateral line is positioned on each side of the body from the medial and lateral midpoint of the foot. It goes around the outside of the ankle and up the lateral aspect of the leg and thigh, passes up the trunk in a shoelace formation under the shoulder, and then all the way up to the skull near the ear. Lateral line muscles include the splenius capitis, sternocleidomastoid, external and internal intercostals, lateral abdominal obliques, gluteus maximus, tensor fasciae latae, iliotibial tract, abductor muscles, and the peroneal and fibularis muscles. The postural function of the lateral line balance the front and the back, as well as bilaterally balance the left and the right. It fixes the trunk and legs in a coordinated manner to prevent any compromise to the structure during activity that involve the arms. The movement function of the lateral line create lateral bend to the body, lateral flexion of the trunk, abduction of the hip, eversion of the foot, assist in helping brake for lateral and rotational movements of the trunk. The uniqueness of the front and back functional lines. So the front functional line is responsible for extension of both the superficial and deep front arm lines. The back functional line connects the front or deep back arm lines. The movement function can be utilized for extra power and precision in limb movement and provides additional momentum. The postural functions would include the stabilizing function outside of resting standing posture and rarely used in standing posture. And now it's time to put everything together and make the roundhouse happen. The roundhouse kick happens relatively quickly. It happens within about a full second, so it's really hard to capture all the details that are involved in the muscular contraction. So first let's look at the full range of motion, and then from there we will go all the way back from the beginning and explain everything step by step. The superficial front, back, and lateral lines are going to be working very closely together. So for right now, we're going to start off with our base. So together, the lateral line will be coordinating with our back and our legs, specifically the peroneal and the fibularis muscles to help us get a good connection with the ground. Our back is going to be utilizing the erector spinae to lean back and pull us away to counterbalance our weight being thrown off. And then our front line will be utilizing the rectus abdominis and as well as our quadriceps to balance out all the pull coming off of our back line. Initiating the movement for the roundhouse kick, all myofascial lines will be required to help create the movement mechanics. First of all, the front line will be providing our base of support, preventing us from falling, utilizing the rectus abdominis and the quadriceps. We'll also be utilizing our tibialis to help prop ourselves up, as well as with a recoil for after we've delivered the weight or the payload. And now we're going to move on to our backline. Now the backline will be providing a pull to balance the weight while we're throwing our front leg out. Our back shall be throwing itself back to help counterbalance. We'll also be utilizing the gastrocnemius to give us some adjustment, whether it's to extend our leg from power, as well as to help stand on our base leg, and our rectus spinae to manage our back. The spiral line will be causing rotation in the foot and in the upper body to generate more power. Our external and internal obliques will be utilized for the upper body rotation. The tibialis and the bicep femoris will be utilized for our legs. And then moving on to the lateral line, it will be used for a support in all of the mechanics that our bodies so far use so far to help with the balance and kind of the transitions between the muscles. It will so be utilizing the peroneal and the fibularis muscles, as well as the iliotibial tract and the tensor fasciae latae. Right now we find ourselves in the payload delivery stage. Right before we bring our leg back, we are just making our contact right now. And while we're making our kick happen, all of our myofascial lines are still active. Our front line is our base of support, preventing us from falling. It's our rectus abdominis and our quadriceps are supporting our structure overall. And then our tibialis is our pivotal point on the floor, preventing us from falling straight to the ground. Our back line is providing the balance for the overall mechanic of our body, trying to lean us back to counterbalance all of the weight so that our leg can actually be raised, utilizing our lateral line. So right now our back line is utilizing our gastrocnemius and our rectus spinae. Our spiral line has already started the full rotation, so it's rather in rotation of the foot using the external and using the tibialis. Our bicep femoris and our external and internal obliques have already engaged to help us deliver more weight and to help us adjust our legs position so that it can help us deliver the payload straight through our target and not rising up or in an awkward angle. Same can be said for the peroneal same can be said for the tensor fasciae latae. Now, the peroneal and the fibrillaris muscles in the lateral line are currently helping us with our support for the base of our foot in both delivering the payload and the base on the ground, preventing us from falling. So now that we have completed our kick, it is time for us to bring it back. So all of the motions that our body has just gone through, now we are responsible for all that weight, and now we have to find a way to bring it back and still maintain that balance. So all of our myofascial lines are still active, and before our back line was being the dominant one, pulling our body back. Now that our leg is coming back down, our frontal line is actually utilizing the rectus abdominis and pulling our weight forward to balance out the erector spinae. And while this is happening, our spiral line now has started to rotate the rest of its body utilizing a tibialis anterior as well as our fibrillaris longus and our peroneus to reposition our body and our legs in a way that it is in line with our hips. And at the same time, our lateral line has now started coordinating, bringing back our legs and acting, utilizing its brake function, using our iliotibial tract, our abductors, our tensor fasciae latae, and making sure that our legs are not coming back way too far apart or either way too close, compromising our balance overall. Now that would be the roundhouse kick being explained with all attention that's happening on in our body with the myofascial lines. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, or if there's something you want to point out, I'm sure I might have had a few discrepancies here and there, and I would love to hear about them in the comments, guys. This is our main reference point right here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful night.